Because we know Viola Desmond left Nova Scotia partly because of the embarrassment that was thrown upon her by this happening, and probably secondly because, at least my own personal feeling would be, I'd have to be a little bit concerned about my own safety as well. I mean, we were talking about a time where there wasn't political correctness, when there was no reason why there couldn't be some retaliation over the fact that she had raised, such an eye of the greater public on what was happening in Nova Scotia with regard to racism, with regard to unjust laws. So I'm sure that would make anybody feel uncomfortable in those days. And so therefore, we lose somebody out of the province that goes to Montreal and then on to New York City, that really should have been an icon when it comes to being an entrepreneur, when it comes to being an African Nova Scotian who has done great things, that we drove out of the province because of that.
Impetus for this pardon essentially came from Viola Desmond's sister, Wanda Robson. Wanda Robson wanted an apology. And it developed into that a pardon would be more appropriate.
Piece in the paper saying that Dr. Graham Reynolds at, it was a university, University College of Cape Breton at that time. Now it's Cape Breton University. It was given this course on culture and diversity and Jim Crowism, and he mentioned several cases that he would like. This was one of his courses. I thought, gee, I'd like to sit in on that.
I was teaching the history of race relations in Nova Scotia, and I don't remember the details about the actual moment, but I think I raised the question of Viola Desmond in my class, and Wanda instantly recognized, of course, this is her sister.
The DVD was on the screen in the classroom, and there's my sister Viola in the picture. And I said, that's my sister. Well, the rest is history, because he realized that I had perhaps something that unique, perhaps I could tell his students that came in. And doing this brought everything back. All those years that happened to Viola, it brought everything back to me. And I thought, this is not right. So I wrote to Mayor, I wrote to him that I was Viola's sister, and I thought perhaps something should be done, a commemorative plaque, or some sort of a memorial, or an apology. I did not realize the steps that were going up toward this major event. They were going to have this apology. They were going to make it a big event. They would make it the way they felt it should be presented, not just from New Glasgow, it would be from the province. And I said, well, that's nice.
Event in this province, the granting of a free pardon.
The decision of the government, through the royal prerogative, that they could not only give her a pardon, but give her a free pardon. It was an admission that she was wrongfully convicted. And of course, it was a miscarriage of justice.
I think it's important to understand the difference. A pardon essentially is to remove guilt, and it's part of our legal system, and we do it all the time. But this is a free pardon, actually a mercy-free pardon, which really says that it's not offering mercy. It's not recognizing that there was something that was done against the law. It really does simply recognize that the law was wrong in this case. And there's no mercy being afforded. It is simply a recognition that this was wrong at the time and it shouldn't have happened. We know now that there should never have been charges brought against Viola Desmond.
With this pardoning, we are acknowledging the wrongdoings of the past. We are also assuring Nova Scotians that all persons, regardless of race, skin color, or creed, are equal under the law. We are reinforcing our stance that discrimination and hate will not be tolerated. And today, we are continuing to make life in this province better by righting a wrong, by free pardoning Mrs. Desmond, and by making sure that all Nova Scotians know her brave story.
On behalf of the Nova Scotia government, I sincerely apologize to Mrs. Viola Desmond's family and to all African Nova Scotians for the racial discrimination she was subjected to by the justice system in November of 1946. The arrest, detainment, and conviction of Viola Desmond is an example in our history where the law was used to perpetrate racism and racial segregation. This is contrary to the values of Canadian society. We recognize today that the act for which Viola Desmond was arrested was an act of courage, not an offense. The government of Nova Scotia recognizes that the treatment of Viola Desmond was an injustice. This injustice has impacted not just Mrs. Desmond during her life and her family, but other African Nova Scotians and all Nova Scotians who found and continue to find this event in Nova Scotia's history offensive and intolerable. On behalf of the province of Nova Scotia, I am sorry.
This was really quite a special moment, I think, for our province, and it did bring together one of the last remaining members of the family, the younger sister of Viola Desmond, who was part of the occasion in Halifax. And I think it was a wonderful opportunity, really, to bring all the members of the community together there. It was a multicultural event in itself, an event that I think underscores the importance of human rights, and something that I think that is, again, a lasting recognition of this as an important historical event, moving us, I think, toward a better future.
Oh, I think it's one of the most important stories on race and law, race and women, race and public services in our history. It draws people in and they can feel connected to the past and to this, what's clearly in everybody's eyes now, an egregious error in law and in public policy. So that's important to have people connect to the harm and the injustice of it.
Yes, there was racism in Nova Scotia. We need to look at, is there still racism here in Nova Scotia? Well, there's racism in Canada. There's racism throughout the world. Why would it not be here in Nova Scotia as well? You have to be able to own it, you have to be able to look at it, and you have to be able to deal with it. And unfortunately, from a Canadian perspective, my personal opinion is that far too often we'd much rather sweep it under the rug than say, okay, let's take it out and let's deal with it.
I hope that in the present and into the future, we look quite carefully for evidence of racism that continues, race discrimination. That's out there, there's lots of it. Some of it is overt, some of it is subtle, some of it is systemic and it's just buried into our institutions and our everyday practices, and some of it seems like common sense. That's how they describe it, common sense racism. And I think we need to really probe and see what's happening out there. Why is it that we've never had a black prime minister? Why is that? Why are so few judges black? Why do we have so few lawyers who are black? And we can just go on asking those questions. Where are they? Why are they not as prominent as people who come from Viola Desmond's community should be in our society? I think this case could challenge us to ask some questions and to become more open to seeing and understanding racism.
It's come so fast, but I guess change has got to come, and change is coming. And it's the the culmination, not only of me, it wasn't only me, it's all those little articles you see in papers about the struggle of the young people, of what they're doing and what they're helping to do for the children coming up behind them, and it's all about the children. It's all about the young people. They have to learn, they have to be taught.
There are so many lessons to learn from Viola Desmond. You can learn the whole, I guess, the lessons around what discrimination and what racism can do to someone. And discrimination is bad on all counts. Whether you discriminate against somebody who has a disability, you discriminate against somebody because of their religion, their sexual orientation, the fact that they may be obese. People are discriminated against because they could be obese. There's all sorts of ways that people can be made to feel that they are less than. Bullying comes out of all of that. So the Viola Desmond story has a lot of areas that a teacher, a principal, a church minister, a rabbi, police officers can learn from that story. There's just so much. And I'm happy to hear that these stories will be going into the schools about Viola Desmond, because you need to have these stories discussed and talked about at a very early age. This is not something to be swept under the carpets. It's part of our history. This is what we need to be talking about.
I have a Brownie group, and I asked the children, what do you think about this? I told them of Viola's incident. What do you really think? Do you have any questions? And one of them said, well, it just wasn't fair. She was 8 years old. Of course it wasn't fair. That was her conception of the whole incident. And it says it all. It certainly was not fair. It shows that when you talk to them, these children can think. They really think, and they notice, and they know. And the future is in those children.
I would say that Viola Desmond's name will live on forever. To know that now, on this historical day, November the 8th, 2010, Viola Desmond's portrait is in Government House. So when people see that portrait, they'll ask, who is she? And then when they're told what she represents, then again the conversation begins. The conversation will begin, isn't that terrible? That would never happen today. But you would hope that when people say that will never happen today, that they will make sure it does not happen today. And I talk about today, 2010, but I'm also talking about 2020, 2050.
When you read about her, when you hear stories about her, she inspires everyone with her calm, principled objection to racism. And stories like that are what we all need to remind us to be brave, to remind us that you don't always win. And when you don't win, that doesn't mean it wasn't worth the struggle. That there's a legacy of inspiration that hands itself on through time. And Viola Desmond is just, in some ways, she's Canada's Rosa Parks, although the better way to say it is that Rosa Parks is the United States Viola Desmond, because Viola Desmond's case happened 9 years before.
If there's anything that we can learn from it, we should be learning not to make those same mistakes again. The only way in which you help to dispel some of the prejudices and some of the discriminatory actions and things that go on there is to alleviate some of the fear that's out there. And how do you alleviate the fear? You alleviate the fear by educating people so that I know as much about you and your history as you know about mine. And that's where we use, if we can instill that in the youth, if we can educate the youth that we've all played a part in Canadian history, we've all played a part in contributing to this wonderful country that we have, and that we all need to be respected because of that, then Viola Desmond's legacy will live on forever.